Hi guys, so today we're reading Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Chapter 23, Malfoy Manor. Harry looked around at the other two, now mere outlines in the darkness. He saw Hermione point her wand, not towards the outside, but into his face. There was a bang and a burst of white light, and he buckled in agony, unable to see. He could feel his face swelling rapidly under his hands as heavy footfalls surrounded him. "Get up, vermin!" Unknown hands dragged Harry roughly off the ground. Before he could stop them, someone had rummaged through his pockets, removed the blackthorn wand. Harry clutched at the excruciatingly painful face, which felt unrecognizable beneath his fingers, tight, swollen, and puffy as though he had suffered some violent allergic reaction. His eyes had been reduced to slits through which he could barely see. His glasses fell off as he was bundled out of the tent. All he could make out were the blurred shapes of 4 or 5 people wrestling Ron and Hermione outside too. "Get off her!" Ron shouted. There was an unmistakable sound of knuckles hitting flesh. Ron grunted in pain and Hermione screamed, "No! Leave him alone! Leave him alone!" "Your boyfriend's going to have worse than that done to him if he's on my list," said an horribly familiar, rasping voice. "Delicious girl. What a treat. I do enjoy the softness of the skin." Harry's stomach turned over. He knew who this was. Fenrir Greyback, the werewolf, who had permitted to wear Death Eater robes in return for his hired savagery. "Search the tent," said another voice. Harry was thrown face down into the ground. A thud told him that Ron had been cast down beside him. They could hear footsteps and crashes. The men were pushing over chairs inside the tent as they searched. "Now, let's see who we've got," said Greyback's gloating voice from overhead. Harry was rolled over onto his back. A beam of wand light fell into his face, and Greyback laughed. "I'll be needing butterbeer to wash this one down. What happened to you, ugly?" Harry did not answer immediately. "I said," repeated Greyback, and Harry received a blow to the diaphragm which made him double over in pain. "What happened to you?" "Stung," Harry muttered. "Been stung." "Yeah, looks like it," said the second voice. "What's your name?" snarled Greyback. "Dudley," said Harry. And your first name?" Vernon Dudley." "Check the list, Scabier," said Greyback, and Harry heard him move sideways to look down at Ron instead. "And what about you, Ginger?" "Stan Shunpike." "Like hell you are," said the man called Scabier. "We know Stan Shunpike. He's sent a bit of work our way." There was another thud. "I'm Barty," said Ron, and Harry could tell that his mouth was full of blood. "Barty Weedley." "A Weasley," rasped Greyback. "So you're related to the blood traders, even if you're not a mudblood? And lastly, your pretty little friend." Relish in his voice made Harry's flesh crawl. "Easy, Greyback," said Scabier over the jeering of the others. "Oh, I'm just going to bite just yet. We'll see if she's a bit of a quicker at remembering her name than Barney. Who are you, girlie?" "Penelope Clearwater," said Hermione. She sounded terrified, but convincing. "What's your blood status?" "Half-blood." "Easy enough to check," said Scabier. "But the old lot of them look like they've been still at Hogwarts age." "We'd left." "Left, have you, Ginger?" said Scabier. "And you decided to go camping. And you thought, just for a laugh, you'd use the Dark Lord's name." "Not a laugh. Accident." "Accident?" There was more than jeering laughter. "You know who used to like using the Dark Lord's name, Weasley?" growled Greyback. "The Order of the Phoenix mean anything to you?" "Duh. Well, they don't show the Dark Lord proper respect, so the name's been tabooed. A few Order members have been tracked that way. We'll see. Bind them up, and with the other two prisoners." Someone yanked Harry by the hair, dragged him short way, pushed him down into the sitting position, then started binding him back to back with other people. Harry was still half blinded, barely able to see anything through his puffed-up eyes. When at last the man tying them had walked away, Harry whispered to the other prisoners, "Anyone still got a wand?" "No," said Ron and Hermione from either side of him. "This is my fault. I said the name. I'm sorry." "Harry?" There was a new but familiar voice, and it came from directly behind Harry, from the person tied to Hermione's left. "Dean?" "It is you! If they find out who they've got, they're snatchers. They're only looking for trance to sell for gold." "Not a bad haul for one night," Greyback was saying as a pair of hobnailed boots marched close to Harry as they heard more crashes from inside the tent. "A mudblood, a runaway goblin, and 3 trunks. You checked the names on the list, Scabier?" he roared. "Yeah, there's no Vernon Dudley on there, Greyback." "Interesting," said Greyback. "That's interesting." He crouched down beside Harry, who saw, through the infinitesimal gap between his swollen eyelids, a face covered in a matted grey hair and whiskers, with pointed brown teeth and sores at the corner of his mouth. Greyback smelled as he had done at the top of the tower where Dumbledore had died, of dirt, sweat, and blood. "So, you aren't wanted then, Vernon, or are you on the list under a different name? What house were you in at Hogwarts?" "Slytherin," he said automatically. "Funny how they all think we wants to hear that," jeered Scabier out of the shadows, "but none of them can tell us where the common room is." "It's in the dungeons," said Harry clearly. "You enter through the wall. It's full of skulls and stuff, and under the lake, so the light's all green." There was a short pause. "Well, well, looks like we really have got a little Slytherin," said Scabier. "Good for you, Vernon, 'cause there ain't a lot of mudblood Slytherins. Who's your father?" "He works at the Ministry," Harry lied. He knew that his whole story was about to collapse with the smallest investigation, but on the other hand, he only had until his face regained its usual appearance before the game was up in any case. "Department of Magical Accidents and Catastrophes." "You know what, Greyback," said Scabier, "I think there is a Dudley in there." Harry could barely breathe. Could luck, sheer luck, get them safely out of this? "Well, well," said Greyback, and Harry could hear the tiniest note of trepidation in his callous voice, and knew that Greyback was wondering whether he was indeed just attacked and bound the son of ministry official. Harry's heart was pounding against the ropes around his ribs. He could not have been more surprised to know that Greyback could see it. "If you're telling the truth, Ugly, you've got nothing to fear from a trip to the Ministry. I expect your father will reward us for just picking you up." "But," Harry said, his mouth done dry, "if you just let us—" "Hey!" came a shout from inside the tent. "Look at this, Greyback!" A dark figure came bustling towards them, and Harry saw a glint of silver and the light of their wands. They had found Gryffindor's sword. "Very nice," said Greyback appreciatively, taking in from his companion. "Oh, very nice indeed. Looks goblin-made, that. Where did you get something like this?" "It's my father's," Harry lied, hoping against hope that it was too dark for the Greyback to see the name etched just below the hilt. "We borrowed it to cut firewood." "Hang on a minute, Greyback. Look at this. In the Prophet?" As Scabier said it, Harry's scar, which was stretched tight across his distended forehead, burned savagely, more clearly than he could make out anything around him. He saw a towering building, a grim fortress, jet black and forbidding. Voldemort's thoughts had suddenly become razor-sharp again. He was gliding towards the gigantic building with a sense of calm, euphoric purpose. So close. So close. With a huge effort of will, Harry closed his mind to Voldemort's thoughts, pulled himself back to where he sat, tied to Ron, Hermione, and Dean, and Griphook, in the darkness, listening to Greyback and Scabier. "Hermione Granger," Scabier was saying, "the mudblood who is known to be traveling with Harry Potter?" Harry's scar burned in the silence, but he made a supreme effort to keep himself present, not to slip into Voldemort's mind. He heard the creak of Greyback's boots, and he crouched down in front of Hermione. "You know what, little girlie? This picture looks a hell of a lot like you." It isn't! It isn't! Hermione's terrified squeak was as good as a confession. Known to be traveling with Harry Potter, repeated Greyback quietly. A stillness had settled over the scene. Harry's scar was exquisitely painful, but he struggled with all his strength against to pull of Voldemort's thoughts. It had never been so important to remain in his own right mind. Well, this changes things, doesn't it? Whispered Greyback. Nobody spoke. Harry sensed that the gag of Snatchers watching frozen and felt Hermione's arm trembling against his. Greyback got up, took a couple of steps to where Harry sat, crouching down again to stare closely at his misshapen features. "What's that on your forehead, Vernon?" he asked softly, his breath foul in Harry's nostrils, as he pressed a filthy finger to the taunt scar. "Don't touch it!" Harry yelled. He could not stop himself. He thought he might be sick from the pain of it. "I thought you wore glasses, Potter," breathed Greyback. "I found glasses," yelped one of the Snatchers sulking in the background. "There were glasses in the tent, Greyback. Wait!" Seconds later, Harry's glasses had been rammed back onto his face. The Snatchers were closing in now, peering at him. "It is," rasped Greyback. "We've caught Potter." They took several steps backwards, stunned by what they had just done. Harry, still fighting to remain present inside his own splitting head, could think of nothing to say. Fragmented visions were breaking across the surface of his mind. He was gliding around in the high walls of the Black Fortress. No, he was not. Tied up, Harry was tied up and wandless, in grave danger. Looking up to the topmost window, the highest tower. He was Harry, and they were discussing his fate in low voices. "Time to fly." "To the Ministry?" "To the hell with the Ministry," growled Greyback. "They take credit, and we won't get a look in. I say we take him straight to you-know-who." "Will you summon him there?" said Scabier, sounding awed and terrified. "No," snarled Greyback. "I haven't got—" "They say he's using the Malfoy's place as base. We'll take the boy there." Harry thought he knew why Greyback was not calling Voldemort. The werewolf might be allowed to wear death robes, and they wanted to use him, but only Voldemort's inner circle were branded with the dark mark. Greyback had not been granted this highest honor. Harry's scar seared again. And he rose into the night, flying straight up to the window at the very top of the tower. "Completely sure it's him? 'Cause if he ain't, Greyback, we're dead." "Who's in charge here?" roared Greyback, covering the moment with inadequacy. "I swear that's Potter, and him plus his wand and 200,000 galleons right there. But if we're too gutless to come along, any of you, it's all for me. And with any luck, I'll get the girl thrown in." The window was the merest slit in the black rock, not big enough for a man to enter. A skeletal figure was just visible through it, curled beneath a blanket, dead or sleeping. "All right," said Scabier. "All right, we're in. And what about the rest of them, Greyback? What do we do with them?" "Might as well take the lot. We've got 2 mudbloods, and that's another 10 galleons. Give me a sword as well. If they're rubies, that's another small fortune right there." The prisoners were dragged to their feet. Harry could hear Hermione's breathing, fast and terrified. "Grab hold and make it tight. I'll do that. I'll do Potter," said Greyback, seizing a fistful of Harry's hair. Harry could feel his long yellow nails scratching his scalp. 1, 2, 3. They disapparated. Pulling the prisoners with them, Harry struggled, trying to throw off Greyback's hand, but it was hopeless. Ron and Hermione were squeezed tightly against him on either side, but he could not separate from the group, and as the breath was squeezed out of him, his scar seared more painfully still. As he forced himself through the slit of the window like a snake and landed, lightly as vapor, inside the cell-like room. The prisoners lurched into one another as they landed in a country lane. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know why she's being cranky. The prisoners lurched into one another as they landed into a country lane. Harry's eyes, still puffy, took a moment to acclimate. Then they saw a pair of wrought iron gates at the foot of what looked like a long drive. He experienced the tiniest trickle of relief. The worst had not happened yet. Voldemort was not here. He was, Harry knew, for he was fighting to resist the vision in some strange fortress-like place at the top of a tower. How long it would take for Voldemort to get to this place once he knew that Harry was here was another matter. One of the Snatchers strode to the gate and shook them. "How do we get in? They're locked, Greyback. I can't. Blimey!" He whipped his hands away in fright. The wrought iron was contorting, twisting itself out of the abstract furrows of coils into a frightening face which spoke in a echoing voice. "State your purpose." "We've got Potter," Greyback roared triumphantly. "We've captured Harry Potter." The gate swung open. "Come on," said Greyback to the men, and the prisoners were shunted through the gates and up the drive between the high hedges that muffled their footsteps. Harry saw a ghostly white shape above them, and realized it was an albino peacock. He stumbled, and he was dragged onto his feet by Greyback. Now he was staggering along the sidewalk, tied back to back to the four other prisoners. Closing his puffy eyes, he allowed the pain of the scar to overcome him for the moment, wanting to know what Voldemort was doing, whether he knew yet that Harry was caught. The emaciated figure stirred beneath the thin blanket, and it rolled over towards him, his eyes opening in the skull of his face. The frail man sat up, great sunken eyes fixed upon him, upon Voldemort, and then he smiled. Most of his teeth were gone. "So, you have come. I thought you would. One day. But your journey was pointless. I've never had it." "You lie!" As Voldemort's anger throbbed inside him, Harry's scar threatened to burst open with pain, and he was wrenched his mind back to his own body, fighting to remain present as the prisoners were pushing over the gravel. Light spilled over all of them. "What is this?" said a woman's voice, cold. "We're here to see he who must not be named," reared Greyback. "Who are you?" You know me." There was resentment in Werewolf's voice. "Fenrir Greyback. You caught Harry Potter. We've caught Harry Potter." Greyback seized Harry and dragged him over to face the light, forcing the other prisoners to shuffle around too. "I know he's swollen, ma'am, but it's him," piped up Scabier. "If you get a bit closer, you'll see its scar. And they're here. See the girl, the mudblood who's been traveling around with him, ma'am? There's no doubt it's him. And we've got his wand as well. Here, ma'am." Through his puffy eyelids, Harry saw Narcissa Malfoy scrutinizing his swollen face. Scabier thrust the blackthorn wand at her. She raised her eyebrows. "Bring them in," she said. Harry and the others were shoved and kicked up broad stone steps and into a hallway lined with portraits. "Follow me," said Narcissa, leading the way across the hall. "My son, Draco, is home for the Easter holidays. If that is Harry Potter, he will know."